Alright, last example of solving quadratic equation using quadratic formula. In this example, we have a quadratic equation, but it is not in standard form, so how do we convert it to that? Well, usually what I like to do is I like to keep my leading coefficient positive, but it doesn't mean that I will not work with negative leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient is -5 in this case. And let's say I'm going to work with the negative leading coefficient instead. Still doable, but it's just that I prefer positive over the negative. So I'm going to move everything from the left to the right by subtracting 2x and subtracting 3 to the right. Well, left hand side is going to be 0, right hand side combining like terms vertically. This is going to be 5x, bring down to minus 5x squared. This is going to be minus 7. Okay, so this is our standard form quadratic equation that is equal 0. So number 5 here is a lowercase b. -5 here is the leading coefficient. It's the leading coefficient positive a. Oops. And this is the constant, -7. So before I apply the quadratic formula, I'm going to go ahead and take care of the discriminant on the side first. And the discriminant of the quadratic formula is b squared minus 4 times a times c. Well, we know b is 5, so that's going to be positive 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4 times -5. Then times c, which is -7. 5 squared, 25. This one, from left to right, -4 times -5 is positive 20. Positive 20 times -7 is -140. 25 minus 140 is -115. This is less than 0. So we're going to have two imaginary solutions at the end. Alright, so the quadratic formula now is, as usual, x equals -b plus or minus square root of the discriminant, or divided by 2 times a. Well, let's see. b is positive 5, so negative or positive 5 is -5. Plus or minus square root of the discriminant, which is -115. Divided by 2 times a. But a is -5, so 2 times -5 is going to be -10. From here, I'm going to go ahead and split this into two different x value because we have the plus and minus. So one is going to be x equal -5 over the common denominator -10 plus square root of 115 divided by -10. And the other one is x equal -5 divided by the common denominator -10 minus the sum square root of -115 divided by -10. Now, in the previous videos, I said that any even root, such as square root, fourth root, sixth root, and so on, should not be allowed to have, or are not allowed to have, any negative number underneath. But in this case, we do have it. So how do we get rid of this negative sign? Well, if we recognize the fact that, where you can see it there, that -115 is a composite number that can be rewritten into the product of -1 times 5 times 23, which are all prime numbers. Then we are going to be able to get rid of the minus sign, or more specifically, it is the -1. Okay, now underneath this square root, you only have multiplication, so by the loss of exponent, you get to separate this common root into 3 distinct ones. One go with each number, so one go with square root of, one goes with -1, one goes with 5, and one goes with 23. But hey, we have earlier that square root of -1 is the letter I standing for imaginary. 5 is a prime number. 23 is also a prime number, so we cannot simplify these two numbers any further underneath the square root, so we got to keep them the same. Okay. But then again, I know that I'm taking a little extra step here, but I just want to be careful. Well, we have square root of 5 multiplied square root of 3, so use the loss of exponent again and just combine the product of these two square roots under one common square root, which is going to be square root of 115, okay? So I could have just written -1 times positive 115, but you know, it's our old habit. I like to break down everything into pieces, and then I like to, you know, put everything back together. It's up to you to decide whether you would like to rewrite -115 into all prime number factors, or just -1 times positive 115. Still okay. But with square root of -115 being I times square root of 115, just replace this with that. So that means we're going to have x equals -5 over, actually now, let's see, we have -5 over -10. Well, that's going to be positive 1 over 2. And then plus I square root of 115 divided by -10. And then for the other one, you get x equals positive 1 over 2 minus I square root of 115 divided by -10. Now we're not done yet. We got one extra step that we have to take. Now over here, on the left hand side, we got positive numerator divided by negative denominator. Well, positive divided by negative is going to turn into a negative. So you got 1/2 minus I square root of 115 divided by 10. Same thing over here. You got a negative numerator divided by a negative denominator. That's going to turn into a plus. And then bring down the 1/2, bring down the equal x. This, or these, I should say, are the imaginary solution of this equation.